Hey friends, welcome back. If you are new here, I am Stephanie and this is Simply from Scratch. Here in my kitchen, I just like to share with you all some of my favorite how-to recipes on a variety of different things. And I thought what would be fun is for the month of January to share some different pantry challenge items. Some people like to do like a no or low spend month. What I like to do is just kind of take what I already have and create meals out of them and see how creative I can get in the kitchen while trying to stay out of the grocery store. So we all know that prices are rising and it can be a little bit harder now to grocery shop with inflation. And so I thought I'd just try to get really creative. In this video, we're going to do breakfast items. We're going to try to knock out a couple of different ones. I'll have some other videos coming up for things that will go for dinners, side dishes, snacks, and things like that. But in this one, we're going to focus on breakfast. So I'm going to be making a basically like an apple pie oatmeal bake, also some breakfast burritos. I have a full video on that and how I make them. I will link that below, but this is just going to be kind of a quicker version of that. And these are all meals that we're going to bake or create and then put in the freezer so they can be grab and go breakfast items. I'm also going to try to make some blueberry muffins as well and show you a little trip to making them taste even better and how you can pull them out of the freezer and warm them up and then give them a nice cinnamon sugar coat to them. And so let's get cooking. Okay, so we're going to start with the oatmeal bake first because while that is baking in the oven, it takes about, I think it's about 40 minutes to get it done. That way we can work on the breakfast burritos and then try to make the muffins as well. So I'm going to go ahead and preheat the oven to 350 degrees. And we're going to go ahead and get everything into this oatmeal bake. Now, this is a recipe that I got from Becky at Acre Homestead. If you guys have not seen her before, definitely go check her out. She's awesome. So much energy. Love the way she cooks. Definitely an inspiration. So wish I could do some of the things that she does. So it's really fun to watch her. She just had a little baby boy, so congratulations, Becky, on that. Now I have adapted this recipe from what she had to suit what works for us. So I'm going to show you that recipe, but I will link her original one in the description box below so you guys can go check it out, and then also check out her vlog as well because she's awesome. Okay, so to start this, it's going to take 10 eggs, and I know that's a lot, but it gives you added protein. And this is really good. This is a great one to have in the refrigerator. You can just eat it throughout the week, or what I like to do, again, because it makes so much, is I like to bake it, let it cool, and then cut it and then put it in the freezer in individual portions. So that way the night before I can pull it out and then pop it in the microwave and get going. So it just makes for a super easy. So we're gonna go ahead and get 10 eggs into the bowl. Now I'm just going to give this a slight whisk. And then, now this is where I change up the original recipe from how Becky does it. And I think hers is just a guideline. She says on her website to just, you know, make it to your liking. But what I'm going to do is I do have one in my house that cannot do dairy. So instead of adding milk, I'm going to add almond milk into this. And then that way she can enjoy it as well. She does like oatmeal, so this will help her, give her something. So it's going to be 2 cups of almond milk. So let me grab that. Okay, so I've got my almond milk, and then this is just the brand that I actually have in the house. I don't have a particular brand that we are loyal to. It's just whatever's on sale. So I'm going to add in 2 cups of almond milk. Now I am personally not particularly a fan of almond milk. I don't like to drink it plain. Just really don't like the taste of it. But for something like this, it works. And again, it keeps it where it is dairy-free, so our youngest can actually enjoy it. So now in here, from here, I'm going to be adding in, oops, let me do this real quick. I'm going to be adding in a couple of tablespoons of apple pie spice, and I forgot my measuring spoons. I'll be right back. Let me grab those. Okay, so I am going to start with 1 tablespoon and then kind of go from there. And it can just, I think 1 tablespoon will actually be enough, because we're going to be using apple pie filling to put in here, and with that it has its own spices on it already, so we don't need to add any more. I'm also going to be putting in about 2 teaspoons worth of vanilla extract. All right, and then I'm going to be grabbing and adding in just a pinch of salt. You don't have to do that. It just will help enhance the flavors if you do. And now we're going to add in the oats. Now this is again where I kind of changed the recipe a little bit from the original one, and I actually add in more oats than what is in the original recipe. So I'm going to give this a quick whisk just to get all of the ingredients whisked up. Okay, so as you can tell, you're going to see that by adding in your apple pie spice, it's going to be a little clumped, and that's okay, because it will mix once you get the oats and everything in there. And I just use this McCormick's apple pie spice. I can't tell if you can see that or not from the glare from the lights, but this is what I put in there, in just a tablespoon. Now this is where I differ a little bit from the original recipe. I add in a lot more oats to it than it calls for 4, but I add in 6. So I add in a couple more. It's really up to you. I would encourage you, if you'd like, to try her original recipe, but if you're good with just the way that I am doing it, then you can increase. I lost track, so I think that's 4. You might be adding a little bit more oats than 5. I might have totally miscounted because I'm not counting correctly, so I'm gonna start with that. I'll know in just a moment. But like I said, I add in 6. It makes it a bit more dense, but I like it because it's filling, and that's the great thing about oats. Yeah, I added in just a touch too much, so I'm gonna go ahead, that might have been more like 7, and add in just another cup of liquid. So just count properly, because I'm distracted and so I missed, which happens. Sometimes that just happens, so you can just change it up a little bit and it'll be okay, because this is just an oatmeal bake, and so you really can't go wrong with it if you accidentally miscount like I did and put in too many. Then you can just add in some more liquid to, you know, so that oats can absorb everything and really soak in that flavor. So from here, let's get all those out. I am actually going to set this aside for just a second, and we're going to do the apple pie filling. So I just have this basic apple pie filling I got from Aldi's. 1 can seems to work, but you can obviously add in 2 or add in more. Now what I like to do is I like to chop up these apples. Oh, hello. Come on, go. Into smaller pieces. You could leave them as is, but I find that because I'm going to be cutting it, that it is actually better to chop them up. So I just basically put the apple pie filling in the bowl, like this, and I just get it all scraped out. Just like that right there. And I just take this tool right here. A lot of people use it to mash up like ground beef, ground turkey when they're frying it in a pan. I just like to use it for the apples as well. And again, I'm gonna just do 1 can, I think, but we might actually add 2 in this time. Let me just see what we have by the time we're done. I know the first time I made it, I just added in, I want to say 1, but now that I'm doing this, I think I added in actually 2. So we will be doing 2. So let me just, and you can see I'm just breaking it up into chunks. I just feel like this is better for when you're cutting into or just even eating the oatmeal bake. But again, personal preference. That's what makes it so great. You could do this as a maple and brown sugar. You could do it as a chocolate chip oatmeal if you have kids that, you know, you want them to do peanut butter and chocolate chip. There's so many things you could do with this. It's really versatile. So you can see the pieces right there. So I'm going to get this in the bowl, and then I'm going to go ahead and add in the second can. I think I will, just based on the fact that I kind of miscounted with the oats. And I think you can see that's not a lot of apples compared to the amount of oats. So we're gonna go ahead and do 1 more can and get that in there. Alright, so now that all of it's in there, we're going to give it a good stir and get it all mixed up. Now, typically this calls for sugar, and so if you're doing just a very basic one with fresh fruit, you could definitely add in the sugar. You do want a little bit of sweetness to this. Now, you could do sugar, you could do maple syrup. If you like honey, you could do honey. I don't usually use a lot of honey in sweetening things. It's just a personal preference. I am going to get a little bit of brown sugar, but not a whole lot, just because there is not natural, but there's sweetness in the apple pie filling, so I don't really want to add too much more. I want it to have a little bit, but not too much. Okay, so I like to take a little like Pam spray and put it on the inside of your glass pan, and then all you have to do at this point is just pour it in. Now, this is going to really fill up to the top. I do have a deeper one, but I know I can make this one work. And just get everything in there. And again, remember, the size of your family will determine how long this will last. This I'll be able to, let's see, 3, 6, 9. Let's see, that's, sorry, 3, 6, 9, at least 12 servings. And that'll be plenty for us. I might actually be able to do up to 15 because, again, it is thick. And so, and with it being oatmeal, it's very filling. Now, the other option, which I am not going to do this time around, is you can, according to Becky's recipe, you can go ahead and top this with melted butter mixed with brown sugar, but I'm going to leave it just like this, and then bake it off, because I've actually found that when I make this, I like to pour a little heavy cream on top, and then that way when it gives you more of like the kind of like a peaches and cream, apple and cream, the old instant oatmeal packs. I would have the little cream pellets in it. I ate that growing up, and so that's what I like to do with this. So we're gonna go ahead and get this in the oven. All right, so we're gonna get this in. It's gonna bake for, we're gonna set our timer for 40 minutes, and then we are gonna check it. And while that is in the oven, I'm going to get this mess cleaned up, and then I am going to start working on the breakfast burritos so we can get those made, rolled, and then cooled and into the freezer, because those again will be something we can kind of grab, warm up, and make breakfast super simple. Now that I've got that stuff cleaned up, I wash my bowl because I'm going to use the same bowl to make the mixture for the breakfast burritos. And again, this is going to be a very loose recipe and very similar, to the one I have another video on where I walk you through how I make them. This is just going to take, it's about the same ingredients, but I'm going to be adding some additional chipotle to it. And then of course, instead of adding in cheese to all of it, which is normal, I'm actually going to be topping them with cheese before I wrap them, and then that way our daughter who can't eat dairy can have one of these for breakfast as well. So let's get cooking on that. We get that done while the oatmeal bake is in the oven, so then we can move on to the muffins, and then we should be covered for breakfast. Now that's not saying that we just eat a muffin for breakfast and that's it. The muffins are meant to add into like eggs, scrambled eggs, fried egg, however you want to do it. Sometimes there's some mornings where you need something quick and easy, and so that just kind of takes the worry out of things. You can add it to it. Sometimes if you don't have like fresh bread in the house, you haven't had a chance to either buy it or make it, having the muffins in the freezer, or if you know ahead of time that your morning is going to be really busy, pull them out the night before and let them thaw so they are ready. Now, not for the pancake muffins, those need to stay from freezer into fridge, but for the blueberry muffins, they can go from freezer onto your countertop and they'll be perfectly fine. So let's get these breakfast burritos going so we can knock this out and then move on to those muffins. Okay, so the original recipe, usually we do 18 eggs. I have 14, so I have more eggs in the refrigerator, but I am not going to open those up. I do want to save some of the eggs that I have for baking and stuff. So I'm going to get the 14 eggs put into this bowl, and we're going to whisk these up with their seasonings, and then we are going to get these cooking in a pan. So the stainless steel pan, or I'm sorry, the stainless steel bowl is going to be for combining all of the ingredients together. So you put your eggs in one. As soon as I get these cracked, we'll get the sausage going so it can be cooking, and we'll just see how many of these make. And I want to say 18 eggs makes a good 10 to 12 decent size of the large burritos, but we've got some different sizes. So we're gonna see what this gets us, and then we make however many that we can make. So, which works for us because, again, some people are not always gonna have this every single morning for breakfast because we're gonna have other things. So eggs are cracked, and so while these, I'm just gonna leave sit right here. We're gonna go ahead and get the sausage going. I just have a 1 pound roll of, this is just Walmart's brand sausage, which works. I actually like the sausage, and it's really good for the price. You cannot beat the price point right now on sausage by getting the Walmart brand. Cut a slit in it. I always make sure, and I'm gonna double check. Yeah, it's still good. You gotta be very careful with sausage. It can spoil so quickly in these packages. And so just make sure, just smell it real quick and make sure it doesn't have any spoiled flavor, excuse me. Don't taste it raw. Smell to it, but this smells just perfectly fine. But you got to be careful. I have bought sausage, brought it home, went to go use it the next day, and it was spoiled already. So I'm very careful. I try to find, if I can, a sausage roll that is still frozen from when they brought it out, or make sure this package that it's in is not swollen. You definitely want to stay away from any packaging that's swollen. That means that the meat is going bad, and so it's releasing like gas in it, and it just starts to bloat. It's really, you don't want that at all. So we're gonna get this cooking, and while this is cooking, we're gonna go ahead and get another large pan going for our vegetables. Okay, so trying to, again, utilize what we have with this pantry challenge and keep our, yeah, this one's looking, okay, so the onion I have is pretty rough looking, so we're gonna take out some of that center right there, and then we're gonna just peel off the outer, and I can still chop this up and use this. So you don't want it to use it if it's bad, obviously, but if you're getting close, this is a good time to always check your refrigerator and see what things look like and what you can use. Now you can add a lot more veggies to your breakfast burritos than what I'm going to do. I am simply just going to add in onions and peppers because it's what we had in the house. I've got this one that's starting to kind of say, okay, it's time to use me. My husband had used the end of it, so I want to make sure we use this up before it goes bad. Now, if we lose any produce, which it does happen, we can just put it in our compost pile out by the garden and then utilize it that way. So nothing is technically going to waste. And I checked on our compost after the almost the first year of it being in, and it's breaking down beautifully. It looks wonderful, which is great because it's going to be great. I'm going to let it go for another year, and then that way we are going to have some amazing compost to use in our garden for when we garden throughout the year, because we live in Florida, and so we can garden pretty much year round. We do get some cold spells. We just got hit, not obviously as hard as everyone else did, but we still got cold weather, and even though we covered everything, things were still a little shocked by the cold temperature. So but they should bounce back without a problem. But right now we've currently got strawberries and broccoli growing out there. I do actually have some peppers, but I had bought them when it was still really warm, but of course, like today, it's 76 degrees. So we'll see what happens. It's only like 2 pepper plants, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm gonna get this other pepper chopped up, and it doesn't have to be a perfect chop. It can be a rough chop. It's really just kind of a personal preference on how you like your burritos. I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller, just so everything will stretch a touch more. You want to make sure when you're cutting your pepper to remove the inside right here. You don't want that. It's a little bitter and tasting, so just kind of, you can either peel it out or you can just take a knife carefully and then cut it out that way. Now, it does have a little bit of funk on the inside wrapper, so I'm being very careful as to not get this on the rest of the onion and get that set aside. But the onion itself, it's getting close. These are some older onions, which is why I want to use them. And as you can see, the green right there, I am just going to pull this out. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes we'll go through a ton of onions and other times we won't. And as you see this one, I go to lift it out. The only thing bad on it is just turning green, is this one right here. So I'm just actually going to cut that off. Nope. See, the inside is actually still pretty green. So I'm going to toss this one as well. And I'm just going to use the outer pieces for the breakfast burritos. Alright, so we have all our peppers and onions cooked, so let's go check on the sausage. Okay, so it's starting to warm up. It's not quite hot just yet, but I don't want it to like splatter everywhere. So we're going to go ahead and start. And actually, before I do, let me go ahead and give the sausage another stir. And as you bring it a little bit closer, but as you can see, it's nice, small pieces of sausage, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. So I'm going to let those brown up a little bit more while we work on the vegetables. And I am going to add just a little salt and pepper to the peppers and onions. Not a whole lot, because we're going to be adding in some additional seasonings. So I don't want to have one thing overwhelm the other. And again, when it comes to salt, you can always add more, but you can't take it back out. So adding in too much can really mess something up. So we're going to go ahead and let this stuff saute up. Let that finish browning, and then we're going to get going on scrambling the eggs. So if you look, you can see that nice browning on the sausage. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off, and we're going to drain this and get the fat out of it, because you don't want to add that into the burritos. And while that's going, then I'm going to finish up on the peppers and onions, and then we'll get going on the eggs. Alright, so a neat trick to draining off the grease from sausage, if you didn't have a colander, for any reason, is just to take a plate and some paper towels. I just use like maybe 3, we have like the select size one. So is you just take it and line your plate like this, and then from there all I'm going to do is pour the sausage onto here and let it drain through, and that paper towel will catch almost all of that grease, and then you can just dump the sausage into the bowl, and then that way you're not dirtying another, well, you're sort of dirtying just because you're dirtying the plate. But if you don't have another use for the colander, or if you don't have one, sometimes they break, they rust, and you know, this is just another little trick to doing it. Or you can even take paper towel, bunch it up, and then swirl it around on the inside of your pan to get the grease out as well. But I'm just going to do the paper towel and plate thing today because I want it to sit for a little bit while we work on everything else. So it's just super simple. Just pour it all on there. And this way too, by doing it this way, you're not losing any of those nice little bits of sausage, because depending on the size of the colander, the holes can be a little bit large, and so some of those pieces could fall through. So we're just going to stick this in the sink, let it cool, and then as you can see, the grease immediately gets soaked into the paper towel. So we're just going to let this kind of spread it out a little bit, let this drain and cool just slightly. We're going to just set it off to the side and work on everything else. Alright, so while I was doing the sausage, the peppers and onions are coming along nicely. See, there's a couple ways you can do this. It's going to be a personal preference, but I like to char them a little bit. I think it just adds a much better flavor. So I put any about 1.5 teaspoons of olive oil in the pan. You can use butter, you can use any type of coconut oil, any type of oil that you prefer into it. I just do the olive oil because, again, we do a lot of cooking with olive oil or coconut oil. that doesn't actually taste like coconut, and I'll show that in another video. So they're getting a really nice char on them. As you can see, it is, this is what I'm looking for. So I'm going to let those go for a few more minutes while I whisk up the eggs and get the seasonings into the eggs. Okay, so I've got my 14 eggs. I'm just going to go ahead and whisk them up. Now, normally if you watch the other video, you'll see we do taco seasoning, and then in here as a flavoring, I am actually going to use, now it just says seasoned salt on my container, but this is like the Morton's everyday like seasoning. I'm just going to sprinkle maybe a little, about a teaspoon or so. Not too much, because again, there's a little salt, garlic, black pepper in here. There's quite a few seasonings in there. And then I'm going to add in some chipotle. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Chipotle pepper. And then I have some actual chipotle peppers, but I don't want to make it too spicy. As you can see, they've got a nice char on them, which is exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm going to just drop those into there. And then I am going to add in our sausage. And as you can see, all the grease is on the paper towel. So again, if for any reason you didn't have a colander, or it was being occupied or used for something else, you can. So we're gonna just let this sit, and then now we're gonna go scramble the egg. All right, so I quickly washed out the pan, because while I want the char on the peppers and onions, I don't want it to stay on the bottom of the pan, because then it could actually give it a burnt taste. So I washed it real quick. I'm just gonna add in a little olive oil just so the eggs don't stick, maybe a teaspoon or so. And then we're gonna get it, but I can hear the timer going for the oatmeal bake. So let me check on that while this is warming up. Oops. Okay, so we're gonna check on the oatmeal bake real quick while the pan is warming up, just because it's been 40 minutes. Sometimes it will take a little bit longer than that, just because again, I added in more moisture, more oats than the original recipe. So no, we're done. 40 minutes worked great. You just want to check it by inserting a toothpick, or this is one I have. Oh, that was really up close and personal. Okay, so you want to check it with a toothpick, or I have this little cake tester, and so as long as it comes out clean, then it's done, and then you'll know, because you definitely don't want it undercooked in the center because there are eggs in it. So let me grab another now remember this, could have butter and brown sugar on it as well, but I opted not to do that. So, but as you can see, let's see if I can get it into the camera. It looks great. It smells absolutely amazing. It's like kind of like an apple pie. That's what it reminds me of. So we're gonna let this cool completely, and then I will likely chill it overnight before cutting and then putting them into freezer portions, but I will make sure to show you guys how I do that. All right, while we were working on that, I can tell that this pan is nice and hot, so we're gonna go ahead and get all of our eggs in here and scramble. And I just dumped the entire bowl in. Now, if we were making a very large batch for, 20 or 30 breakfast burritos, then you'd have to do this in batches unless you have a really large pan, which we do, but for something like this, I don't need as big of a pan. So go ahead and get these scrambled, and then we'll mix it all together, and then we'll give it a taste to see if it needs any more seasoning, any more chipotle powder, even just the seasoned salt, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Okay, so eggs being done, I'm gonna go ahead and add them to the sausage and peppers and onions, and then just go ahead. Now, in the other video, you'll see that at this point, we've got like Velveeta cheese in here. So it's gonna be super creamy. You could absolutely do that. Those are amazing, seriously amazing burritos. My husband created the recipe. This is, again, just so that way our other daughter who cannot eat dairy can have an option that's quick or easy, because we all work from home. And so it's, sometimes you just don't want to spend a lot of time in the kitchen in the morning making breakfast. There are times that I don't. Just a little bit of kind of one of everything on the bite, and see if it needs any more seasoning to it. That's really good. That's going to be great once we get it put together with the cheese and the burrito. It's got that nice crispiness on the sausage, just enough of the chipotle to add flavor without adding so much heat, because again, we can add an additional heat later if need be, but this is great. So we're going to go ahead and get the tortillas warmed up and get some cheese shredded, and then we'll assemble, and then we can move on to the muffins. All right, so I've got some cheddar cheese, and then my daughter, we found this dairy-free cheese, Mexican cheese bread. This is the one she really likes the best, and so we're going to top hers with that. So I've got just this small block. I may need to shred some more, but we'll see how far this takes us, and how much it gives us by the time I'm done shredding it. Now, you can buy pre-shredded, use a block, it's up to you. Again, the original one calls for Velveeta cheese because it gives it a rich and creamy flavor, so you can also just do that. Just check out the video, the link below, and you can see how I put that one together. It's a little different, not completely different, but it is a little different from this one. Again, I just wanted to change them up this time, and then that way, because now our daughter has found a dairy-free, or even if you want to say vegan option for cheese that she really enjoys. She's so excited about being able to eat cheese again and have it made. I think the first thing she did was make a quesadilla as soon as she found the cheese that she liked. And so we found it at our local grocery store at Publix. I've never seen it at Walmart, but that doesn't mean that it's not at a particular Walmart, it's just not at ours. So for us, Publix is where we get it from. All right, so we've got the cheese. I think this is gonna be enough for the burritos I make. So we shouldn't, actually, let me leave this sit out just in case. We shouldn't have to shred anymore, but this should be plenty for it. So I'm gonna go ahead, I've got several different types. I've got some keto-friendly burritos. I've got some large ones, but then I also have gluten-free, which is for our other daughter who can't have gluten. So we're gonna start with these, get these warmed up first. That way we don't have any cross-contamination. And there's no gluten in the sausage at all either. Obviously not in the block of cheese, but even the dairy-free cheese is gluten-free as well. So let me get those warmed up. And you don't want to heat the wraps, like get them steaming hot. You just want to warm them up so they're soft, a little bit more pliable, so they will roll easier as well. And actually, well, let me grab the plastic wrap. What I will be doing is I'm going to fill them, top them with cheese, roll them, and then we will store them in one of the tortilla bags, and then they'll go into the freezer, and then everybody can kind of just grab as they want them. All right, so these are just slightly warm. You don't, like I said, you don't want them too hot, but you do want them to roll. Now these are gluten-free, so they're not gonna necessarily roll as well, just because anything gluten-free tends to, the structure is just a little bit different, but we'll do the best we can with these, and then let's get these assembled. So again, wrapping them up, because again, you can see they really are tearing, but it'll be fine once it's in the plastic wrap and then she warms it up. Typically, when we make these burritos, we actually don't freeze them. We will just eat them throughout the week. But what I don't want to do is have any go to waste, because we get burned out on them. So I'm going to put these in the freezer this time, and so we will see how they do. Now, I have watched other people do them and then they're totally fine, and so but this will be new for us to put them in the freezer and pull them out. And so they are topped with cheese. Obviously you can freeze cheese. Now it does change the texture a little bit, so I don't really know exactly what is going to happen with it, but from what I've seen, because I got the idea for freezing them from Becky over at Acre Homestead, that you know, they love them, and so she just tops hers with cheese as well, which is why I thought, you know what, we'll give it a try, because that will allow me to have some that are dairy free as well. So I will keep you guys posted as we have them and see how they are. If it's not something for us, then we'll just go back to the old way of doing things, which is to do the Velveeta cheese, and I'll make just enough for the week where we can have it for 2 or 3 days. That's usually about our limit in a row. Like, we don't want to, after that we want something else for breakfast. So now some people can eat the same thing every single day and it's not a big deal, but sometimes variety is good too. So, but this is why we're doing the oatmeal bake and then making the muffins today as well, is so that way we've got some variety so we don't get burned out. Again, with a pantry challenge, I know everybody's pantry is different, so you're limited based on what you have, but if you can give yourself some variety, change some things up, maybe not do as big of a pan as, say, like I did for the oatmeal bake, do a smaller pan and do 2 different flavors, so that way if you're eating oatmeal, you can change up the flavors, you know, and that way it doesn't seem to be the same thing every single time. So I'm gonna get the rest of these wrapped and get them done so I can get them in the freezer. So difference in the way the tortillas look. I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but these are really smooth for the keto, and these just have a different texture. I don't want to say they're not smooth, but you can just see they just look very different. I know this one's in plastic now, but the wraps themselves here, I still have some gluten-free that I'm not using. But you can see the difference and see the texture difference. Now I will still mark them so my family knows, but you can see it looks like a tortilla, but it looks very different than what the keto ones do. So I can tell them apart, but I want to make sure that it's nice and easy for my family to grab and go. That way my daughter, who is sensitive to gluten, doesn't accidentally pick up the one that has gluten in it. Alright, so I have the last 3, so I'm going to go ahead and get these wrapped up, and then we can get moving on to the next project that we have. Alright, so I am just going to put a G and an F on the gluten-free ones. That way my daughter knows which one are hers. And then these are dairy-free, so I'll just put D and F. My daughter came out, so Sherry knows that there's 2. And then the rest are just the keto ones for my husband and I. And so they don't need to be marked. That'll be easy to know. So but what I am going to do is I'm going to take the extra large burrito bag that we have and see how many I can fit in here. And then that way I don't have to pull out a freezer bag and use it. And now you can, but hopefully we'll go through these before we have to worry about it getting any freezer burn on them. And so let's actually do the dairy-free ones in there first. They're a little bit bigger. Yeah, okay. Pop the gluten-free on top. And then we are good to go. Shit. I hope, let's see if I can get this sealed here. Yep, all sealed. Okay, so now they're all in here, and then I'm going to put these in the freezer and they'll be available. So we got 2, 4, 6, 7 of the ones with the keto wrappers, 3 gluten-free, and then 2 dairy-free. So we got 12 burritos. So that's at least, that'll give us, again, because we'll break it up with the various things that we have. Then let me come down here because I can't see on the camera. This will give us, probably this plus the bake would give us at least 2 weeks worth of breakfast, because again, we change it up. So a lot of times my husband will do scrambled eggs, and so he'll have that instead of a breakfast burrito. So this just gives some options to make it a little bit easier on everybody. And so based on the time, I think I'm going to come back tomorrow morning and we will do the muffins, but I will make sure that all of that is in this video so you see it as a breakfast pantry challenge. Just got a very late start due to a few other things this morning, and so I want to go ahead and get the kitchen cleaned up, and then that way I can relax just a little bit before I need to make dinner for my family, because it is late in the afternoon. It's after 4 o'clock, and so I don't want to wear myself out and then not make dinner for them. So I will be back in the morning and we will do those muffins and get that done as well. So thanks for joining me up until this point. I appreciate each and every one of you.